someone who is, well, you're going to hear a lot about her from her personal story. But she's going to share something today that she's never shared with anybody. And you're going to get to know her. Her name's Jillian, the Fit Booty Beck. And she is an absolute superstar among so many worlds. And in fact, she, growing up, used to play competitive soccer. She's a certified yoga instructor. But she recently actually was one of the finalists on NBC's food show, Food Fighters. And so she is very knowledgeable again and experienced in putting together programs and systems that help individuals compete or be healthy at the highest levels. And the fact that she's been able to work with individuals, NBA players, other key athletes, really goes to show her credit and her knowledge. And yet here she is today to be able for us to learn from her. So will you just put your hands together for Jillian, the food fight junkie?
Thank you so much for the introduction, Russ, and I'm so excited to be here with you guys today. I'm so excited to share the words that I've prepared for you. I'm excited to be in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., at your guys' North America Convention. So yes, it's a big step for me, and you guys have a really pivotal role in my journey, so I just want to thank you ahead of time for that and for this opportunity. So here we go, my presentation. Let's see here. So I'm just grateful for all of the awards, the achievements, the prestige that I've had in my career and in my journey as the Jillian Fit Foodie. But it hasn't always been that way. I'm just very grateful right now to be on this stage, to be alive and well in an able body, because I used to be very sick. So let me back up. I grew up a very active and lively, vivacious kid. I was always moving around. I would get in trouble in class for talking too much for my teachers. I just had this energy, and my grandma used to call it like vim and vigor. And my mom would say, "You're like dynamite. Your big things come in small packages, Jilly." So that's how I grew up. But it wasn't always a perfect childhood. So that's the essence of who I am. But let's back up to the beginning of my journey back to the States. So I was born in Taipei, Taiwan, and my parents divorced at the age of 6 years old. And my mom brought us from Taiwan back to Boise, Idaho, to be closer to family. And she was a single mother, just gone through a divorce, in this country with 2 daughters, trying to support us. She struggled to put food on the table. I wasn't that child that had brown paper bag lunches, perfectly balanced by their parents. That left me hungry and embarrassed a lot of the time. I wanted to be like my friends that had that, and I didn't. And my mom did the best she could. She struggled, she had 3 jobs, she was trying to make ends meet, and I was just a young, happy kid, and I busied myself with all these extracurricular activities. And during that, my older sister, she was the one that was struggling. She was about 5 years older than me. And she had a heavy weight on her shoulders, trying to kind of raise me, along with dealing with an absentee father, being in the States. We were raised in Taiwan. And so she just had a really heavy load. So after being back in Boise, Idaho, my father came back into the picture. And I witnessed my sister and his relationship was very strained. Now I saw a lot of fighting, a lot of tears shed, a lot of screaming. My dad came back into the picture, and he was trying to kind of exert a lot of control and power over her. And as a girl in her young teens, she was kind of rebelling and pushing back because she had a lot of resentment about why the divorce had happened. So I kind of witnessed that, and in my 10-year-old mind thought, I never want that. I never want to be making my father upset with me. I want to always make him happy. I want him to be proud of me. I don't want to have these tears shed and the slammed doors and the fights that I witnessed. So witnessing all of that made me, in my heart, tell myself, I'm going to do everything I can to be Daddy's little girl, to maintain that, to make him happy, to watch football games with him, play all the sports that I could, just to really connect with my father that had not been around for the last 5 years. This cycle between, the father and my older sister fighting definitely left an imprint on me, just to be kind of this people pleaser, wanting everyone to be happy and smiling all the time. And so when I approached my teenage years, something shifted inside of me. People can say it's puberty or teenage feelings, but I just started to have these kind of like deep, dark emotions, and trying to figure out how to sort through those. And I journaled a lot, I listened to music, I did a lot of things to cope with those. But that being said, I was just very aware of people's energy and happiness around me and wanting them to be happy, even though I was feeling these kind of darker, more insecure thoughts inside of me. So seeing my sister and my father fight kind of made me, people-pleasing, walking on eggshells around my father. I always wanted to be sporty, like I said. I challenged myself physically with sports. I was really blessed from my mother with a genetically kind of muscular physique. So I took that and I excelled in the sports. And I witnessed my father kind of criticize my older sister for her weight, even though she was just in her early teens, going through puberty as well, for not being athletic. And I think that really left like an imprint on myself. So one Saturday, every Saturday I spent with my father, he would cart us around to the soccer games. I was sprawled out in the back of his Land Rover, just sweaty, exhausted. I had grass stains, dirt stains on me, and I was absolutely spent from our soccer games. And we had won. I should be super happy. My role, I actually had, a pivotal role in those wins. And my dad made a comment that day, and I remember his words, and they cut like a knife to my heart. And I think that if he knew the impact of his words at that time, they would have never come out. So after those 2 games of exhaustion, we won. I made these amazing crosses that resulted in winning goals. My father says, JB, looks like you put on some LBs, like pounds. And my adult self would look back at that comment as like pretty ridiculous. Because I look back at photos, I might have been 100 pounds. But my body was changing. I was a muscular, child growing up, and a lot of people, it's hard for them to gain that. But right now, I would look back and kind of tell my dad to take a hike, in maybe not so nice of words. But I look back and I see how ridiculous that comment was, but at the time, as a young and impressionable child, those words really stung and they stuck with me for a long time. After that game, I remember sitting in the shower, standing in the shower, and just looking down at my body and not seeing it as this like muscular, athletic body that allowed me to excel in sports, but seeing curves and being ashamed of what I was seeing and what I was feeling. And this spiraled into something that I don't think my parents would have ever imagined. And like I said, if my dad had known his words at the time, I don't think he would ever have uttered those, because they, like I said, stuck to me. Like a cell that enters the bloodstream and creates a sickness, that day was a long journey in my battle with a sickness. So suddenly, I'm in junior high, and the boys are teasing me about like my muscular legs. And like, now I can look back and say, okay, they had chicken legs, and they were jealous because I was beating them in sports, and I was first picked in kickball, and beating them in races around the track. But at the time, I'm looking at my friends and the other girls, and they're leaner and they're skinnier and they look more like the models on magazine covers. And I'm starting to compare myself a lot. Like, I want that. I want to be smaller. I don't want this muscular physique. I want to shrink. And that is when my strength and my, athletic, muscular build started to become my weakness. Because I no longer appreciated my body for the vehicle that it was. I started to hate it. I wanted to change it. I was trying to force it into something that it really wasn't. So during this period, I still performed really well in soccer, although I didn't really even believe it. I played club soccer on a traveling team. We went to New York, we won nationals. I remember sophomore year in high school, I made varsity, and I literally looked at the coach when he told me that I had made the varsity team, and I laughed. I was like, how could little old me be one of 4 sophomores that made the varsity roster? But, eventually, I still succeeded in soccer. I put on a pretty face. I had an amazing work ethic. But during that time, I experienced my first injury at 90 pounds. And at the time, that was about 15 pounds underweight of what I should have been. And most people didn't really even notice that anything was wrong. I was still like this bubbly, make everyone happy Jilly. And they had no idea the wage and the battle that struggled inside of me to achieve those results. And I feel like if they only knew, maybe they wouldn't have said some of those things. So they would say like, oh my gosh, Jilly, like whatever you're doing, you look amazing. But little did they know that I was starving myself, like physically and emotionally. I was starving for acceptance, I was starving for love, and I was addicted to controlling what I was putting in my body and watching that number on the scale drop. And I became very sick. So, like I said, people saw this like little, smaller, daintier, happy Jilly. But inside, I was far from happy. I was sick and I was addicted to that number dropping. I tried to lose weight, and in turn, I lost that little girl, that vivacious, rambunctious child that I now have a picture of on my mirror to remind me of my true essence. I look back at that photo and I just say that's the true essence of me. That's who I am, and I don't want to conform to anyone else's ideal image. I want to embrace who I am. So deep down inside, I really struggled with this. Food started to consume me instead of me consuming food. I was losing weight, and I was losing that zest for life, that light, that spark that really made me who I was. My dynamite, I guess my mother would say. And it was like this for me for years. It was a really dark time in my life. It was kind of like the end of high school into college. I saw therapists. I went to outpatient therapy. I was hospitalized. I had heart arrhythmia, low potassium. I mean, I just ran the gamut of like health problems that was going on at this time. And I remember sitting there being weighed daily and being force-fed and having like tears streaming down my face. And I literally had like a body of a child. And all I wanted at that moment was to beat this. I didn't want to change my body like I had before. I didn't want to be small like I had before. I wanted to beat this. And I didn't think it was possible. I thought that I would always be shackled by my battle with an eating disorder. So, that was then, and this is now where I'm at. And thank you for letting me share that, by the way. So, let me see if I can click. I don't know. You can go to the next slide. Hold on. Let's go back. Okay. 1 second. Sorry. I was just trying to get used to this. 1 moment. I've never done like a speaking arrangement with this. The confidence monitor is awesome, but I'm just trying to get back to where I was with my story. Okay, so back to, that was my story then, and then things started to shift for me when I came back to Boise, Idaho, where I'd grown up after college, and I was working with a company called bodybuilding.com. They're the #1 health and fitness website in the world. And